What's going on, APUSH peeps? We have a great video for you today. This one begins period 3. This is video number 11, the 7 Years' War, also known as the French and Indian War, and its impacts. This has been a frequent topic for short answer questions and essay topics. So this video and the next one are very important to understand for the impacts of the French and Indian War. All right, let's start off with some historical context. Some key ideas before the war. Well, there's a rivalry between Britain and France that increased in the mid-18th century. And you know, most wars during colonial America were fought over land. You got it. Look at you, you APUSH star. So British colonists sought to expand. Now, the 13 colonies that we think of, you're going to see this map quite a bit today. They all were this dark maroon color here. So the original 13 colonies did not include places like where I'm living in Buffalo over here. That was originally French territory, so they were really confined to the East Coast. So George Washington, he's going to challenge French expansion in western Pennsylvania and near present-day Pittsburgh, and he's actually going to inadvertently start the French and Indian War. Most natives, except for the Iroquois, will side with the French, and Britain practiced salutary neglect. This is already underlined, but I want you to star and circle this bad boy for me, please. This concept is so important to understand. This is the idea that Britain left the colonies alone as long as they were profitable. So they really didn't get much into the day-to-day operations of the colonies. They didn't really tax them too much as long as they were profitable. That, however, will come to an end after the war. Okay, let's talk about the war. Lasted from 1754 to 1763, even though it's called the 7 Years' War because the first 2 years were mostly undeclared fighting. Britain forced colonists to enlist and provide shelter for the soldiers. Britain and the colonists are going to play a large part in this role. It will be about 50-50 percentage-wise of the troops will be from the British and the colonists. And Britain is going to defeat the French. Now, you don't really need to know a lot about the war itself, but rather the causes and effects of it. Now, at the Peace of Paris of 1763, this is the treaty that ends the war. Britain is going to gain all French land east of the Mississippi River, except for New Orleans. So all this area in pink is what Britain now gains. So this area in the Ohio Valley, New York, even Buffalo where I am, all this area in pink, Britain gains as a result of the French losing. The French are essentially kicked out of North America, except for a tiny little island called Haiti, which we'll talk about in a few videos. French gave New Orleans and land west of the Mississippi to the Spanish, their ally during the war. So what we know as the Louisiana Purchase that we bought from France, that goes to the Spanish and then is later transferred back to the French. Okay, so some impacts of the war. Britain is in major debt from the war. Everybody circle this. Debt is the most important thing to understand about this video. Britain is in debt, so they need to find a way to increase revenue. So if you're looking at Great Britain, they're like, we're broke, we need money. This war was very long and very expensive. So they will seek to end salutary neglect and they will raise revenue. And they will do so by instituting taxes, which we'll get into in the next video. They also will seek to consolidate their control over this large amount of land they just gained. 1763 is a wicked important year. You should absolutely know 4 major events from that year. First one is Pontiac's Rebellion. This occurs right after the French and Indian War. This is a Native American rebellion in Ohio, in the Ohio Valley, to resist British encroachment. All these natives, led by Pontiac, were sharing land with the French. And the French, if you remember, tended to treat the natives better than the English. So once these natives realize the French are no longer there, they're going to resist British colonial expansion. As a result of the rebellion, Britain issues the Proclamation Line of 1763. And what this says is that the colonists cannot expand beyond the Appalachian Mountains, which is this line right here, separating the dark maroon from the pink. So the colonists just gained all this land from the war, and they're going to want to expand. But England is going to say, no, you can't expand because they want to avoid conflict with Native Americans. So a lot of people here in this dark maroon area, the colonists will want to expand to gain all this land, but Britain says no. So the colonists were upset. Some of them ignored the order and just moved west anyway. This will lead to tension between the colonists and the British. Now, 2 other things happened in the year 1763. We have the end of the 7 Years' War, which we talked about, and that leads to the end of salutary neglect. And Britain begins to take a more hands-on approach with the colonists. They begin to tax them. They begin to consolidate their control. So when you see 1763, I want you to think PEEP, P-E-E-P. Pontiac's Rebellion led to the Proclamation Line of 1763. The end of the 7 Years' War led to the end of salutary neglect. Okay, quick recap. Salutary neglect, what is it? When does it end and why? Most natives sided with the French during the war. Britain gains massive amounts of land after the war. However, the colonists are not allowed to expand. They're in major debt, so they'll begin taxing, as we'll see in the next video. And they also hope to gain control over the colonies and this massive amount of land. And they will end salutary neglect. The importance of 1763, think PEEP. Every time you see 1763, automatically think PEEP and you will be golden. All right, guys, look forward to seeing you back here for video number 12, events leading to the American Revolution. Super important video. Make sure you're familiar with it. Best of luck on all your tests. Thanks for watching, and have a good day.